Hello YouTube, this is Kurt and welcome to the Kurt Winters YouTube channel, dedicated to bring you advice on collecting cars and celebrating the history of these amazing machines. This channel is focused on helping you with your car or restoration project. Today's video is all about why I changed my mind on the Chevrolet C4 Corvette and some reasons why you should too. Now, I wanted to let you guys know that we had scheduled Post Malone to be on set today, but unfortunately had a last-second reschedule. So we want to go ahead and dedicate this video to Post Malone, my personal hero. Thank you, Posty. So I found myself shopping on Auto Trader, looking for 90s sports cars that were priced anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. Normally, my sweet spot for buying a classic 90s car is going to be somewhere between 50 and 70,000 miles, along with a price tag of no more than 10K. Now, I have to be honest, I'd never really been a quote-unquote Corvette guy. If you look at some of the other cars that we feature on the channel, I tend to lean towards Japanese 90s sports cars as opposed to American muscle. So when I saw this Corvette and I saw the styling of what GM had began to do with the Corvette at the end of the 90s, it really piqued my interest. These first Corvettes hit the market in the early 80s. I remember looking at them and not quite getting that same styling vibe that I saw from the C3s and the C2s. What really happened was, with this particular car, GM really figured the styling out. So let me show you what I mean. Let's take a walk around to the back of the car. The tail lights became square. This was a takeoff of the popularity of the ZR1 model Corvette. So that was one of the big styling cues that got me, was the squared off tail lights. Between the squared off tail lights and the squared off third brake light, it really sets the car apart differently than some of the earlier Vettes that I had grown up with that were kind of ingrained in my psyche. Okay, let's walk around to the front of the car and look at some of the other changes in styling cues that really stuck out to me. One thing that had always really bothered me about the early C Corvettes, or the Barbie Corvette, as we called them in my elementary early circle of life, was just how much the front end resembled the Trans Ams and the Firebirds of the day. So what I kind of mean by that is, the styling on the front was very kind of boxy. There was a lack of rounded edges on the car in general. But something started to happen to GM, especially at the early 90s, and on to where, I don't know if it was the influence from Ford with the Taurus, but curves as opposed to sharp edged lines really came into play. The lines go all the way around the car. If we look even at the clamshell hood, from the body gap here, all the way up to where the hood touches the door, you have beautiful uninterrupted lines. And I have to say, this was one of the big reasons that changed my mind on buying a C4 Corvette. Okay, so let's talk about another big reason that really pushed me towards the Corvette. So if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I have several sports cars from the early 90s, kind of a hoopty fleet, if you will. Shout out to Tyler Hoovey at Hoovey's Garage. You're the man. Now, right now, C4s are going anywhere between $2,000 and $10,000. And that's a really big price gap. This particular example, I picked up for around $8,000, which was one of the deciding factors when I purchased the car. We were able to get the price down to where what I thought was reasonable. So if you're shopping for C4s, remember, if you find the right one and you do your homework and research, don't forget to check out some of my buyer's guides. you can really get an excellent Corvette that's been well taken care of for a very, very reasonable price. Now, after price, there was another deciding factor that had kind of always kept me on the fence about these cars. And it was the stigma, unfortunately, of the owners who have these types of cars. I can't tell you how many C4 Corvettes, C5, C6, just Corvettes in general, where I see owners who either drive obnoxiously or just go ahead and mod them out and change out what was already a beautiful, beautiful design. Now, what I found after owning my Corvette and becoming a big part of the YouTube Corvette community, shout out to Reynolds Rides, I really realized that not all C4 Corvette owners are douchebags. There's a lot of really, really cool people out there. I've been getting tons of positive support, comments on my page. Everyone's willing to share their knowledge. So that really, really blew me away because unfortunately, like I said, there's a stigma attached to driving a Corvette. Kind of the same one that's attached to a Ferrari, kind of the same one that's attached to a Lamborghini or a BMW. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those cars or those car brands. It's the people that ruin them. Okay, so let's talk about speed for a second. Modern muscle cars, modern supercars and sports cars really have come a long way in the 27 years since this little girl rolled off the line at the Bowling Green, Kentucky plant. So one thing that kind of always, I don't know, I was trepidatious about the Corvette is I'd simply heard, hey, it's not really a fast car. And this may be true if you're just strictly going off of numbers. But there's something that you really want to keep in mind when you're shopping for a Corvette or for a car, any car that has plenty of torque and a lightweight layout, is that you are going to feel the torque. So one of my favorite quotes that I heard is that horsepower, that's what you brag about to your friends. Torque is what your ass feels in the seat when you romp on that gas pedal. And I promise you, when you test drive a Corvette, especially with an LT1, LT4, even the L99s, you're gonna find a level of torque in that early rev range that is so linear and it's right at your toes that it's an exhilarating experience. So even though the Corvette may not be this, 0 to 60 track monster, it does have plenty of torque, and you will still get that thrill out of driving this Corvette. Now, the next couple of things that really drew me to this Vette that I didn't know they had going on was really first, the color. Now, GM called this color competition yellow. And after a little bit of research from the Corvette website, I found out that normally each year there's less than 200 to 300 yellow Corvettes that are actually produced. Turns out some of those popular colors are white, black, surprisingly not red as much as you would think, tan, green, more kind of understated colors. For whatever reason, Corvette owners don't really gravitate towards a yellow Corvette. Now, don't get me wrong, there are tons of great C4s rolling around out there in all of the colors that I mentioned. So one thing to keep in mind about a color is it's very, very objective to the person who is looking at it. So that's not really my point. My point is this Corvette, and again, with not being a Corvette guy, the color combination, the rim combination with the black interior and the black roof really, really drew me to this particular car. Okay, now this is gonna sound a little crazy, but just bear with me. I knew I wanted a car with pop-up headlights, okay? I love 80s and 90s cars with pop-up headlights. There's just something very nostalgic and special to me when you see those things pop up at night. But as you know, due to the safety traffic regulations, pop-up headlights have been designed out of cars. Something about how they're dangerous to pedestrians. So when I saw this particular Vette, understanding that the later C5s and C6s obviously went to the inset headlight, I realized that this particular Vette had some of the coolest pop-up headlights I've ever seen. So let me show you what I mean. Let's get a shot of the front of these headlights. Did everybody see that? Are you kidding me? Pop-up headlights. Pop-up headlights. Let me demonstrate again. We got pop-up headlights. Pop-up headlights. Okay, it doesn't get old until you destroy the motors and the headlights. But come on, check out those pop-up headlights. You can't tell me that's not sick. Okay, so one of the things that I've always heard about Corvettes is that they ride harsh, there's not a lot of room on the inside, they smell like gasoline, they always leak oil, they're just kind of an unrefined platform of a sports car. And what I learned, especially when it comes to comfort and drivability, is that's just completely false, especially for the C4 Corvette. If you've noticed, I've got a full-size straw cowboy hat on right now, and I'm a big guy. I'm approaching 6'4". I can sit all the way up, and if you notice, I still have room between my hat and the top of the Corvette. Now, for all of my old school fans out there, all of my OGs from back in the day, you'll probably know that when car designers, especially GM, when they were designing a car, one of the prerequisites was a gentleman had to be able to get into his car and still comfortably wear his hat. Now, if you think about the sports cars of today and how they set low and your head's banging off the top, I don't know of a lot of sports cars with this type of body room or interior room, or headroom, I should really say, that you're going to get out of the Corvette. Now, touching on the comfort aspect of it, that also really blew me away. These seats and the layout of the car is very, very comfortable. I do not feel cramped. I do not feel claustrophobic. So I've already kind of got the convertible experience in my life, so I don't really unbolt the top off my Vette. Now, if you like to take the top off your Vette, place it in the comments below because I would love to hear about it. I've also taken this car on several 2 to 4 hour cruises across Texas. The suspension is compliant. It's comfortable. You'll notice on the wheels that there's plenty of rubber. There's not low profile tires on this car. And remember, your tires are a very, very big part of your suspension, especially on a Corvette. So when it comes to comfort and the drivability of the car, I was really shocked. This car is super, super comfortable. And if you're worried about will I be comfortable in the car, I would say you would. Now, one thing to keep in mind, which I have mentioned in another video, getting in and out of the car is not the easiest thing. So that's something you may want to try either on your test drive or your friend's C4 before you actually pull the trigger on that. Really want to let you know that the inside is super comfortable. And of course, the last thing I want to let you know, a toll is a toll and a roll is a roll. And if we don't get no tolls, we don't get no rolls. I'll see you in the next video, and keep jamming, C4 community.